Yo, this is Chris coming to you live from the basement, and this is Facts Over Feelings. Listen, let's cut through the noise. This week alone, we've heard people shouting that Obama committed treason. We saw headlines about putting sugar back in Coke. The media covered a prisoner swap with Venezuela and forgot to mention one of the men released had been convicted of a triple homicide in Madrid. And somehow, Hillary's emails are trending again like we're in a rerun. All of it. Distractions. And I want to make one thing clear. I am not going to touch on this topic again. But what came out today was so big, I had to. And these distractions, they're distractions from the one thing they don't want you to realize. The Epstein files are never coming out. You'll hear them blame the judges in the courts. You'll hear them say the grand jury testimony is sealed. But go look it up yourself. When was the last time grand jury testimony was unsealed? It almost never happens because it's not designed to. This isn't just a delay, it's a cover, a slow burial of truth disguised as legal protocol. So ask yourself, why do we keep chasing headlines about everyone except the people still in control? Because this week, we learned something else. In May of this year, the President of the United States was told that his name appears multiple times in the Epstein files. And then he got on camera and denied it, called it a hoax. Let that sit. Now, if this is your first time watching, or if you've been riding with us, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, and share this episode. Because we don't chase headlines, we chase what they bury. Even when it forces us to rethink everything. And if you're wondering why the leaks are starting now, here's my take. And this is opinion only. When you surround yourself with loyalists who believe you're the one exposing evil, and then they start to realize you're the one hiding it, they don't stay silent, they leak. Not out of disloyalty, but out of principle. Because betrayal cuts deeper when it comes from the inside. So let's rewind, not to speculate, but to trace the pattern that's been hiding in plain sight. If your power's built on the promise of exposing evil and your own insiders start to think you're hiding it instead, they're going to act. What does that tell you? Maybe there's a factional war. Maybe it's not just about justice. It's about control. Let that sink in. And listen, while we're talking about secrecy, let's talk about those files that will never come out. Because we're not talking about a few emails. We're talking about 300 plus gigabytes of confiscated evidence, photos, emails, flight records, surveillance, all collected by the FBI in 2019. Some of it too disturbing to release. Much of it tied to ongoing civil suits. But ask yourself, what would it take to get that material into public view? Witness lists, they're going to be redacted. Video logs, they're going to be buried because they got to protect the victims. When those same victims, right, have asked for transparency. And what about Ghislaine Maxwell? She's in prison, but she's never testified. She's never given names. She's never faced open court on anyone else who was involved. That silence Feels by design. And before we go any further, let me be clear. Everything I'm covering in this episode is publicly available, sourced from multiple credible outlets, court filings, investigative reports, survivor statements, and archived interviews. But the idea for this episode came from two moments. One, it's obvious, the Wall Street Journal story that dropped today. But two happened earlier this week, and I kid you not, it was a complete accident. Flipping through the TV, watching a show on Vice the other night called The Dark Side of the 90s. And this episode was called Secrets of the Runway. Any idea what that might be about? But before we go any further, I want you to check out this trailer from that on YouTube. Let's roll a clip.
In the early 90s, stars of the fashion world start to blend with other celebrities. Supermodels are now known for both the clothes on their backs and the men on their arms. But before a model can make it to the A-list, she must make it through the hands of powerful and sometimes predatory gatekeepers, something fashion writer Michael Gross understood.
There were patterns of behavior that had been acceptable.
And he wants to expose it, but Gross will soon discover his plan to shine a light on the shadowy part of the modeling industry will be met with a dangerous kind of darkness.
I was actually threatened by Johnny Casablancas, who made a lunch date with me. He looked at me, he said hello, and then he said, if you harm elite, elite will harm you. And he stood up and he walked out. Wow, It was clear to me this was an amazing story, and people only knew the tip of the iceberg. And when John Casablancas...
And just to pause, Elite was one of the premier modeling agencies in the 90s that was ran by John Casablancas. So just to put that out there.
Delivered the threat, I got a little paranoid at a certain point. I took all my interview tapes and I put them into an airline carry-on bag, and I hid it under the bed of a friend of ours in Paris. I'm not writing about the mafia, I'm writing about the fashion world, for God's sakes. Jean-Luc Brunel had a horrible habit of using the merchandise for reasons that were not above board. The same thing happens with every one of these guys. Look at Gerald Marie. It just so happened that in his off hours, he was treating models like garbage.
By the mid-90s, Gerald Marie is at the center of rumors about bad behavior with models. While on an agency retreat in Ibiza, American agent Marie Anderson overhears a conversation she can't ignore.
It was Gerald Marie, John Casablancas, Lisa Herzog from New York Elite, and Trudy Tapscott from New York Elite. And both of these young women were begging the men to stop sleeping with the young teenage girls. And Gerald said, we are men, we have our needs. And John's response was, Lisa, Trudy, it's not that big of a deal. Like, stop being so puritanical about your ideas of sex. Wild. This is fine. And the men refused to listen.
This is wild. She even said it in the French accent, right? Come on now.
Disgusted by the blatant abuses of power, Marie Anderson quits her job as an agent at Elite.
I kept trying to have this conversation, and people were like, Marie, shut up. Nobody wants to hear this crap. Don't be a Debbie Downer. This is part of the business. Just accept it. One model in particular, who I thought was tough as nails, I warned her what was going to happen. And she's like, Marie, I'll deck the guy. That'll never happen. A little time passes, and she calls me crying. And she said, Marie, Gerald Marie's a pig, and he's been hitting on me all the time. And he said that if I don't sleep with him, I'm not going to work, and I haven't been working. I think I'm going to sleep with him. I'm like, don't do it. Please, girl, don't do it. You're sell your soul. She said, okay. Thank you for talking me off the ledge. I won't do it. So months go by. And she comes home and she's showing me her portfolio full of covers. And I'm like, look at you. Look at all these beautiful covers. Aren't you proud of yourself? You didn't sleep with him. And look what you accomplished. And she sat there silent. She goes, no, Marie, I did start sleeping with him. And as soon as I did, I started booking those covers.
Listen to this. This is the type of power these men had. They mentioned all four names: Trump, Epstein, Casablancas, and Brunel. That got me wondering what else was out there. And that sent me down a rabbit hole. So now we're going to walk the trail together from what was whispered back then to what we know now. Virginia Giuffre, who, rest in peace, committed suicide, a few months back. Alicia Arden, Sarah Ransom. They were real people. They were kids, recruited, groomed, exploited. This episode isn't about Epstein. It's about the systems that protected him. It's about the people still alive who held the doors open and the victims who still haven't seen justice. And before we move on, ask yourself this. This historically right-leaning, friendly to Trump outlet, why are they leaking this? Has to be someone top level. Once again, this isn't the deep state. This is someone inside who feels betrayed. Someone who still believes the public deserves to know. That should tell you everything about what's really going on. So with that being said, I'm about to go share my screen again because I want to get into this piece. So Justice Department told that Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files, right? So when Justice Department officials reviewed that what Attorney General Pam Bondi called a truckload of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein earlier this year, they discovered that Donald Trump's name appeared multiple times, according to senior administration officials. In May, Bondi and her deputy informed the president at a meeting in the White House that his name was in Epstein files, the official said. Many other high-profile figures were also named, Trump was told. Being mentioned in the records isn't a sign of wrongdoing, and I want to be clear, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just reading this. The official said it was a routine briefing that covered a number of topics, that Trump's appearance in the documents wasn't the focus. They told the president at the meeting that the files contained what officials felt was unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump, who has socialized with Epstein in the past. Some of the officials said, one of the officials familiar with the documents said they contain hundreds of other names. They also told Trump that senior Justice Department officials didn't plan to release any more documents related to the investigation of the convicted sex offender because the material contained child pornography and victims' personal information. And for the record, you should protect the victims. Any incriminating information should never, ever come out. Pictures, videos that implicate child pornography, never. Only the men should be exposed. But let's continue. Trump said at the meeting he would defer to the Justice Department's decision to not release any further files. The meeting set the stage for the high-profile review to come to an end. Bondi has said in February that Epstein's client list was sitting on my desk right now to review. So I'm not going to go into it, but so now you know the headline, but this isn't new. This is just what finally broke through. That's it. Because back in 2015, 2016, even earlier, people were already raising alarms. Trump's name was in Epstein's contact book, flight logs, calendar notes. He flew on a jet. He went to the parties. He hosted Epstein at Mar-a-Lago with 28 women flown in for a private event. And the only two men there were him and Epstein. And while Trump says they had a falling out, they ran in the same circles for years. Trump even publicly praised Epstein in 2002 for liking women on the younger side. Trump also founded Trump Model Management, a now defunct agency accused of exploiting foreign models, coaching them to lie at the border, and housing them in dorm-style conditions. And who were the other folks? Who were his modeling industry buddies? Jeffrey Epstein, financier and trafficker. Jean-Luc Brunel, he was an agency owner, accused trafficker and rapist. Rumors that he was sleeping with girls as young as 14. John Casablancas, Elite Models founder, self-admitted teen pursuer. This man admitted to sleeping with 16-year-olds. 3 are dead. 1 remains. And he's the most powerful of them all. Just think about that. And again, I'm going to show you an article from the Daily Beast that was buried somewhere. It's crazy. I didn't even see this article until this week, right? But check this out. Inside Donald Trump's one-stop parties, attendees recall cocaine in very young models. I mean, I'll just read a few excerpts from the article, right? But both men also put Donald Trump in a room with cocaine, very young women, and underage girls, and rich old men there to, pardon my language, but if the Times can say pussy on the front page, I can say this: fuck them. Yo, that's wild. That I got nothing. That's wild. That's wild. All right, let me continue. I'm sorry, Ivanka, I really am, because your mother raised you well, and I can't blame you for supporting your father, even if he did at the least, his blessing when you were 15 and signed on as a model yourself with Elite, the hard partying high-end agency founded by notorious teen fucker John Casablancas. But here's the sad truth. Your dad's not a dog, he's a pig. The photographer says he attended Trump's parties with one of the owners of the hair salon, Pierre Michel, that operate in both the Plaza and Trump Tower. The salon owner, Pierre, says his memories of those Plaza parties vanished after a recent surgery, but the photographer's memories are crystal clear. Trump would take over suites on the corners of his hotels with views of Central Park and Grand Army Plaza, not to mention lots to look at inside and wow his guests. The attraction for the men was young girls assuming they get somewhere by joining the party. Now look, I'm not saying Trump is guilty of Epstein's crimes. What I am saying is, why would you believe he isn't? This is a man who has lied over 50,000 times in public, who said Bondi didn't tell him he was in the files, when the Wall Street Journal now confirms she told him in person in May. This is a man who profited off a system that brought in young foreign models under questionable terms. The same system exposed in court documents and press reports years ago. Who partnered with Casablancas, a man who dated 16-year-olds, who was close with Brunel, accused of trafficking girls from Europe for Epstein. And now, he's president again. The only one of those four men still alive. And he controls the Justice Department, the very institution that just decided not to release the remaining Epstein documents. So no, I'm not throwing accusations. I'm showing you the pattern. And I'm letting you decide what to believe. So if you're asking, what now? Ask your lawmakers. Why no independent inquiry? Ask the media. Why no pressure on the DOJ? Ask the courts. Why is secrecy the default even when the public demands disclosure? Because justice doesn't come from sealed folders. It comes from exposure. That's the reality. This is what I'll tell you. If Bill Clinton was in those files, if he is in those files, release it. If Bill Gates is compromised, release it. If Prince Andrew paid a settlement or did anything in those files, show us the full truth. Everyone involved should be held accountable. But stop pretending like Trump isn't in this picture. He wasn't some outsider stumbling into this world. He was at the center of it, alongside the same men who vanished before they could face the music. And now, he's the one deciding what gets released. I'm not here to sell you a conspiracy. I'm here to hold power accountable. And the truth is, the breadcrumbs were always there. So again, why is this happening now? Why? Because Listen, there's a lot of pressure on Trump right now. Not when Epstein was arrested, not when Maxwell was convicted, but in the middle of his second presidency. It's because he built part of his power on the idea that he was going to expose it all. The secret cabal, the child predators, the evil elites hiding in plain sight. He let his base believe he wasn't part of the system. He was there to tear it down. And no, he never said Epstein by name, but he never denied it either. Because he knew once he admitted that some of those hoaxes might be true, he loses the moral high ground. So let's be honest. If this was always about just about justice, why didn't Biden release the files? I'll give you two reasons. And this is the main one. One, maybe because if anyone says Trump's name next to Epstein, to his supporters, to his base, it becomes a hoax. And then number two, there are powerful Democrats in there. And does the story become more trouble for him than it's worth? I don't know. I don't think so. It shouldn't, because we're talking about sexual predators. But what if all the hoaxes were true? Would you believe the evidence if it ever came out? Would you even accept it? Or are we so divided that the truth itself is now partisan? Right? Who remembers this?
Maybe releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll check back with you.
And by the way, they released the MLK files even though his family said, no, we don't want them released because, and again, we can go into this another episode, but the FBI was following MLK around. This wasn't necessarily the best time to be black in the United States, just putting that out there. So something to think about. But do remember this.
So who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book?
FBI.
But who? That is, that I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
He's now the director of the FBI, by the way. Kash Patel is now the director of the FBI. But
like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school. Yeah. We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is a...
So, listen. To me, and to a lot, this is what betrayal looks like. Not by the media, not by the courts, by the very people who said they were going to blow the whole thing wide open. And here's the part that haunts me. This isn't just about sex crimes or sealed files. It's about the way power mutates truth into myth. A system that protects itself even when victims scream. A media cycle that buries the bodies under flashier headlines. And a public so divided, it'll believe anything except the obvious. We are watching institutions, courts, Congress, even movements rot from the inside because no one wants to touch what's at the core. And if we can't expose this, what can we expose? You can't rebuild trust with sealed evidence. You can't claim moral high ground if you hide from your own people. And you definitely can't call yourself the party of justice while protecting the last man standing. The Epstein files weren't supposed to be a partisan issue. They were supposed to be a reckoning. But if the people who promised to reveal the truth are the ones now sealing it away, what else have we let slide? What will we still deny? Even the receipts with the receipts in front of us. Because if this isn't the moment to demand more, maybe there won't be another. This is Facts Over Feelings. If you believe in truth over tribalism, like, share, subscribe, and look, cop the merch at FactsOverFeeling.com. I'll see you all next time. If you made it this far, you're not just scrolling, you're searching. Hit that subscribe button and share this with one person who actually thinks. And if you're ready to keep pushing past that noise, tap the box on the screen. I'll see you there.